Let's dive in. So let me give you a bit of an expectation, what you can get from a less huge adoption talk that I'm going to talk about. One predominant topic is also a bit related to several other talks in the conference, which is how to engage with the management. So it's kind of like a public secret that quite a few less adoptions fail because it's so damn hard. And also don't even start simply because it looks too damn hard. And one of the main reasons why that doesn't go well is involvement of the management and connecting to the management and specifically leadership, despite I don't like that word that much. Let's say, to make it more concrete, board members of a bank, and which are basically end responsible and the founders of the bank. In this case, Jago and Dicatalis. There's kind of like one company, but technically two companies. One is responsible for product, everything related to product delivery. Another one is to running the bank, regulatory reporting, etc., etc. So the second kind of like a side topic, which I also to connect to other talks in a conference, is the remote working and async working. So how did it play out? Because we have a lots of experience of that here. Let's start. So to give you a bit of an impression of, it's a very, very diverse group of people, Indonesia. For me, the first time that I engaged with the culture and the country, and we did the less huge adoption. Now, one of the main things, one of the characteristics, not only there, but in many other countries also, is how people work in companies and how is the relationship to the management and how typically management observes and looks at people. So it's very common in Indonesia, just like many other countries, to look at it from a theory X point of view, meaning people don't actually really want to work. So considering they don't want to work, you need to establish a system in order to make them work. And so there is a certain also, the way work is organized is highly process-driven. Roles, responsibilities, divided. You always know who's accountable for what, etc. And so there is a general assumption, if you don't have this kind of a level of control, nothing much will happen. And so in a different ways, control. Now, the consequence of that is the fact that it actually works. You can deliver products like that. It's just that to work, because of this whole setup, partially because of this way of looking at people, is not very collaborative. Okay, so when they say, when we go to the team and ask, do you collaborate? They basically say, of course we do. We help each other. Okay, so everybody has their own role. I'm a developer, I'm a QA, I'm a whatever it is, and we help each other when needed. And they consider this collaboration. This is very, very common in companies. When we say, do you collaborate? They say, yes, of course we do. But in less, and requires a much higher level of collaboration in order to make it work. Astonishing level. So that's why many less adoptions feels to people like, how in earth name can you make 50 people be in the same room and do refinement together? That sounds like it's going to be a chaos. Okay, it just looks ridiculous considering how ineffective the meetings generally are. So, why do I show this slide? Is that what happens is in order to establish that level of collaboration, there has to be a certain level of trust. And trust doesn't happen overnight. And so this takes time, quite a lot of time. And so in a less huge adoption, and this specifically, what we clearly noticed is that less and whole adoption caused a lots of conflicts. Before that, there wasn't that much. People were clearly, all because of lots of dysfunction in organization, didn't like each other much, but they were kind of working. But now they are forced essentially to really collaborate. They are forced for the first time to work in an actually real team. A real team meaning group of people who will wake up in the morning to achieve the same goal and not deliver my task and see how my contribution is to the overall goal. It goes beyond that. So that's to give you a bit of a context of the struggle and that we had. So I'm mainly also working with the board members and on a context of a trust and how to establish trust, how to improve trust. And so trust workshops are something that we now started doing in order to get people to understand how that works. It's actually really practical. It sounds very fluffy, trust, but it's surprisingly actually concrete. And this is one example of that. So if you want to do some complex task, and the more complex it becomes, the higher the collaboration should be in order to do this effectively. But if the collaboration needs to be very high, and therefore also the relationship between people needs to be high, there has to be also very deep trust. Otherwise, conflicts occur, either in ending up in a toxic situation or resolving them and having a very deep relationship between people. Now, last week, these two guys gave also talk on the same topic. I'm just going to emphasize different aspects of that. And so Alex is the head of engineering there. And the way the whole LESS started essentially came from previous experience with LESS. And he suggested to the company, hey, you should do LESS. The first reaction was, I was literally in the meeting, I was invited also to help down to kickstart everything. And board members were asking like, what the heck is LESS? And why should this thing solve our problem? Is it yet another blah, blah, agile, whatever it's called? Okay. Now, what I already learned before that is do not sell LESS. Do not go to organizations and say you should do LESS. That clearly doesn't make any sense. No management ever cares about LESS. So no company cares about LESS or Scrum or whatever. What they care about is they have their own problems, clear, real, painful problems, and they want to have some kind of an insight first is how to deal with those problems. How do you scale up? How do you ensure that the collaboration, the coordination happens properly? How do we get stuff done up to a certain time? So these are typical problems that they have. You want to understand them. So I shifted the way whether to do LESS or not LESS and actually stop talking about LESS as a term and as a concept, but actually focus very much on the problems itself. And so this resulted in basically first a workshop and training for the management. And then on a daily, not daily, on a bi-weekly basis, we had basically kind of like a mini trainings. And those are actually initiated first as a form of a reporting because they are paying these expensive consultants to do stuff. And they want to kind of have a reporting like how things are going and stuff. I misuse those to basically educate. So they would ask, how is it going? Well, we established definition of done, and this is really important, and this is actually what makes your organization become better. And they then say, what the heck is definition of done? And then we talk about it, yeah. And so I explained the definition of done is maybe one of the most important measurement for organizational capability. And then we move on from there. So this slowly shifted away from this very theory X way of working, which is very common in Indonesia, and not only there, and to more and more theory Y. And this is not based on we need to respect people or something like that. This is actually based on a hardcore capitalistic idea of getting stuff done better. Because if you do not respect people, you will not get stuff done better. And so it's not about being very nice to people. It's about actually capitalism. And so this resonates with management. Okay, stuff are not working properly right now. It needs to work better. How do we make it better? And so, but they do need to have a kind of like a idea what do we mean by the respect for people? How does it look like in reality? Now, self-management, this also triggers all kinds of resentment with management. But then we talk about how this actually plays out through systems thinking if you do self-management. Okay. Now, this took a while. In the meantime, we started a LESS adoption. But before we, just to give you a bit of a context, a little bit more about Decatalis, what are we talking about here in Jago? So it's a startup essentially. So it scaled up really fast, and so this is the currently situation, and so they're doing really well. It's a successful product, and it's growing quite fast in a number of customers, amount of money in the bank, etc. The key thing which attracted me when I just got engaged is the reason for existence, which is the sentence that you see, second one, serving the unbanked and underbanked population in Indonesia. So most of the people in Indonesia, they actually, typically housewives, they keep track on a paper ins and outs of the money. So this is not a good idea, to put it mildly. So there's a better ways to do that. And so the purpose of this bank is to serve that. Okay? And this is also one of the, I discovered, major reasons for many people working at the bank to work for that bank, because there are lots of banks. And so why should I work for this one compared to other ones? Now, what happened before we ended up in LES, so why the heck did I choose LES, actually, besides those statements that I just made, is so they already had a Scrum introduced, Scrumish. And they already had this typical structure of a Spotify type of a thing. Actually, this was McKinsey that came with a very sophisticated approach. And it kind of looked like this, with a basically matrix structure, with chapters, guilds, clans, all this funny terminology. And I think my favorite one is squad, which is, I think British used that to name the German soldier in the Second World War. Yeah. So that's where the term comes from, and we call team squad for some reason. So, so there's enough of beautiful, nice English words, which actually we can keep using, which is called team. There is no reason to introduce something more fancy. So this was how it looked like, and it became almost a disaster. And the reason why is because this is a startup. In a startup, impact is everything. You need to make impact now. There's no time for discussions and for complicated things and so on and so on. It needs to happen now, and they are stuck. They are putting more and more pressure to make it happen now, but what happens actually, it just gets more and more toxic because of that, with all the best intentions. So they're running out of the time, companies losing, and then they try to get it working. It just didn't. So they were quite desperate, and this desperation basically made them say, okay, Victor and others together with me, and do your thing, okay? They didn't really understood what they're getting themselves into, but they have to do something. So we did. So in a workshop, before we started, we needed to establish a clear objective, purpose. For which purpose are we actually doing this? The purpose is obviously not to implement less. The purpose is to achieve something better for organization. And these are the actual goals that were established with the board members. There's much more to it, but these are kind of like a key statements. So they really needed to improve their ability to quickly and cheaply react to changing circumstances, be on a market sooner, and improve employee satisfaction and engagement. These are very clear things for them. Now, we took one group and did a flip, as we call it. So meaning that you move from component teams to the feature teams. I will not talk extensively about it, but just to give you a bit of idea how that looks like is that single backlog, they're pulling the work from the backlog and work on a different components. So there is no component ownership anymore for this group. And so there was immediately much more cross-collaboration between teams. And so many people need to figure out how to communicate better because they're just not used to. And product owner, there was a really big fear and a major question always, how in Earth name can you have one product owner for so many teams? And it turned out to be usually just working immediately. Just let the teams do their work, and you suddenly end up realizing they can actually do themselves. You don't have to babysit the team and telling everybody what to do. So that worked. That worked actually pretty well after the third group. Actually, a bit too good. And so I'll explain what happened. What happened next is that I'm sitting with the CEO, and CEO says, It took you 6 months to flip this group, okay? So there was a lots of like a training and preparation and discussion of how to do it. And then stabilization period, altogether 6 months. This means with all the groups of teams that we have, so it's going to take multiple years. We don't have the time. Now, in the LESS, we generally advise slow down things. Don't do it too fast because it's very impactful. It's such a dramatic change for the people. You need to give them time. But that time just wasn't there because of the need. And so the risk of not actually flipping faster the rest of the organization was too large, larger than the risk of flipping too fast, essentially. And so that's what we did. We decided to actually expand much faster. And this is just examples of 2 of those groups, but they were altogether 7. Each of them has around 4 or 5 teams. And so 1.5 years adoption, they have flipped 7 product groups, 30 feature teams, 250 people, all working from a single backlog. Okay, single backlog. Remember that each group has their own subset of the single backlog that they're looking at, and they're working on that subset. But all the teams understand fully what's in the overall backlog, and the prioritization is still happening by the product owner. Now, what's so interesting about the product owner thing is that you have typically in a bank multiple business lines. And those business lines typically compete against each other because they all have their own priorities and stuff, etc. And now we establish single backlog. Now, this was a bit of a discussion internally that board members at the end decided, and they saw the benefit of actually empowering the product owner to actually have a more decision-making power on priority than any of the specific business lines. So essentially, if somebody, one of the stakeholders, one of the business lines, says, I want to get my stuff done, they can go to product owner, ask, can you please prioritize this? But then the product owner simply says, sorry, I don't find this important, that's it. Then they can go to complain on a board level, but usually that's too much trouble, and so unless it's really important, and the board member can overrule the product owner, because the board is responsible for strategy, and product owner is responsible for basically delivering the strategy, whatever that might mean, on a very high level, essentially. So product owner is the one who says something will or will not happen. So this worked really nicely. Obviously created lots of also tension between people, and they need to realize this is actually good for everybody, despite my stuff is not getting done, and so on. Now, another thing is the shared code ownership. So this is still work in progress. Immediately we started to share code ownership much more than before, because before everybody owned their own components. And but because there is from scaling up lots of junior developers, there is a bit of a discharge from a senior developers to leave it up to junior developers to do it. Now, this is still from my side that I'm encouraging people, just do it, because otherwise it never gets improved, and they are still pushing back, like let's slow down. Everybody agrees we should all share the ownership of all the code. We all agree that the trunk-based development is a good idea. We all agree we shouldn't do branching and stuff, and no pull requests and so on. But how fast do we get there? That's a debate. That's a discussion often. Okay. So it's a more and more shared code ownership. Now communities, many of them very active to collaborate across different teams. Okay. Now the painful part, obviously, just like in any LESS adoption, is that the previously product owners and all those roles are gone. And people need to go into the teams. They generally suggested to go in teams, but don't need to. And so what happened is that some of them did. Some of them just feel quite uncomfortable losing their position, because it's a kind of like a product owner is seen as a higher than a developer. And so it feels demoted and stuff. So this is as usual, quite. This costs time and need to be done gently and talk about it a lot, etc., etc. That journey, this to give you a bit of idea, this is really fast. This is just really fast, and I wouldn't advise in other LESS adoptions to do this, because it usually causes a lot of too much trouble, and it can mess up the whole LESS adoption. At some point, management says, just pull the plug and say, stop, we're going to go back to what we did before, because this is too much of a mess. But because we engaged the board members very consciously in the risks, and we talked about it very extensively by exploring what will happen most likely if we speed up, there was a readiness if trouble comes, and trouble did come, then we expecting that, we know that, and we know what to do about it, and it's well managed. So expectation from a board when they talk to me and other coaches is that it's okay if you don't know something, but you better be able to manage this properly. Don't come to me with a, let's do self-management and we'll see what happens. Board members immediately disconnect. Like, no, you need to manage this really well. Uncertainty is okay, but needs to be properly managed. Now, also what's interesting is they started to engage really fast directly with the end users. In this case, were the partners, because these ones, this group of teams, they are providing all kinds of stuff to partners outside of the Jago Digitalis. And, but in other case also they're engaging with the users directly. So that's something which is, I still hear many companies is almost unimaginable that developers talk to users, and we managed to do this here pretty fast. Despite dramatic difference of how it was previously, which is basically developer execute your task and don't ask any questions. Okay, so it's basically to you to deliver as fast as possible what I've been told. And now we change dramatically into this new situation. Obviously not everybody does this, but quite a few developers do engage and do talk, and some are just silently present and so on. Okay. Another thing which is we don't have actual managers for the teams. We have a principal engineer, which is a little bit like a manager, but you can hardly say they are managing anything. They are basically more coaching, assisting. Many of them just coding together with the teams, and they are facilitating architectural discussions and design discussions, this kind of things, and that's what they do. And they also supposedly be doing kind of assessment of the people and deciding salaries and stuff, but that's kind of like very often not taken too seriously. So it's usually done by the higher management for everybody. So it's very simplified. So the teams actually, you can hardly say they have any management. So we don't actually, with so many teams, have actually direct management, which is managing the teams. Yeah. Now, obviously, it basically almost, the company just started before the COVID, so need to shift into multi-team, into remote working. And so we did, and we used these tools. And after some experimentation, this tool kind of stuck. These tools, these are two main ones, Miro and what's the other one? I forgot. Yeah, but the left one is Garatown. And Garatown, so where you can actually see each other. So Lisette also showed this one. So this worked kind of nice, yeah. And the key thing here is that we emphasize very much that we still want to have a synced way of working, okay, not async. And this is really important. Nowadays there is a very popular push for async way of working. But the thing is about async way of working is async literally means I send you information and I'm gonna just wait or do something else in the meantime. We know this for decades. This is waste. It's called switching cost, cost delay, all these kind of funny things. So we really don't want to have that. So async is generally discouraged. So we do use Slack massively, and no email, funny enough. And but Slack, how it's being used, is mainly synchronous. So meaning if I send a message, there is a general agreement that should get the answer immediately back, and so not wait on each other, yeah, and so on. And now this give you what we discovered, and this is one of my main messages about whole remote thing. We discovered, especially in less adoption, because it's such a high push for collaboration, there is also high chance of a conflict, and in order to make it work. So what happens is that due to remote way of working, there was lots of small and growing pretty bad conflicts were happening on different levels. So I was coaching mainly the management, and the board members, and but also in the teams. And I was literally seeing everywhere all kinds of weird conflicts happening. And I saw the pattern in those conflicts. Almost all of the conflicts was just simply miscommunication. So people were not actually disagreeing on an actual topic or anything fundamental. They were just simply not understanding each other, miscommunicating. So they have this remote meeting, and then somebody says something, another one didn't even get the message properly, especially non-verbally, and then he assumes something else. And then they kind of like briefly say something pretty nasty to each other, or don't say anything, and then the meeting is over. Now, that's the worst possible situation. Both sides are kind of like stuck in a vacuum, don't know what to do with it, and they start to play in their head, like, what the heck is happening, blah, 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 blah. And later on, they talk to me and say, oh, did you see that person? And so on and so on. It's like lots of buzz about nothing. And then we try to resolve those conflicts. Some of them are really bad. And so they were kind of like hidden in the background, but I then know them. And so we tried to resolve them, and it just couldn't even be resolved remotely. And at some point, like, we need to get together, and physically. And yes, as soon as we get together, stuff proves to be not even a problem, which is kind of like astonishing. You come and you see each other, and then you talk a bit, and they look at each other, and there is a much more empathy for whatever reason. And then suddenly they say, we already agreed. Like, and you look at each other for 3 months, there was this conflict, and they already agreed. Like, what the heck is going on here? Yeah. So we push very much to still get together in office. Now, Lisette mentioned flexibility. That's absolutely the case here also. Flexibility is really important. Nobody's forced to go to office, but what we do is we encourage people very much to get together still, because it's just simply collaboration becomes way better. Now, just to give you a bit of a glimpse, this is two areas, two requirements areas in 2 different rooms, and they are people from different teams working on items, refinement. So they're refining those items, estimating at some point, preparing, fully understanding which problem are actually solving, and yeah, general refinement, and so 1 room. And so at some point, that's the product owner, which is usually just passive, and standing there, getting questions from others, and quite sometimes funny to see that the product owner doesn't have much to do actually in refinement, because teams are doing everything. And yeah, continues like that. Yeah. Good. Now, I want to leave you with this one. Last one is a bit of a system modeling. What we noticed is the more remote working there is, so that if the remote working percentage grows, then what happens is that also the people then start to suggest to do more async collaboration practices, okay? Because it's more convenient. Why? Because of the zoom out problem and being in a Zoom all the time and this kind of stuff. So they start to prefer async. But what happens if they're async then we are working is that they diminish amount of pair programming, okay? Which is kind of like a normal practice. And then also there is a tendency to have a distinct roles. Why? Because if we do async, then everybody needs to know what exactly each of us doing. Otherwise, we cannot know expectation from each other. And this distinct roles leads to handoffs and lack of multi-learning. So people are more reluctant to actually learn from each other and share responsibility. And then this actually then diminishes the high level of collaboration, okay? Which then leads to also to number and duration of the conflicts that happens, okay? And the more collaboration you have, the more and a number of and duration of the conflicts happen, because you're supposed to collaborate a lot, but because of the async and the remote way of working, these are then take too long to resolve, which leads to waste, delays, knowledge scatter, etc. Another one is a very popular pull requests and delayed code reviews, code branching, is mainly because it's just not convenient for the people to do that when they're working remotely. Okay, and so if you want to get rid of them, you need to pair up much more, etc. So this is really important. That's also my main message. In order to understand how to deal with this, please use system modeling and to really deep dive and see what's actually really happening. Okay. Thank you.
Now, I have a few questions, but I really enjoyed that there is no one question I was expecting from the very beginning, and I was expecting the question, what is less, by the way. So let me just do a quick poll before we move forward. How many of you have heard about the less? Whoa, I'm impressed. So maybe we just got those people who know about less, and the other people on the second. Anyway, I'm going to go with those questions, and if you have any more, then maybe you will be able to ask them. First of all, so the first question is, does all the team work in Scrum and have Scrum Master? And I'm going to expand this question with one more. What does the Scrum Master in LESS do in this case?
Okay, so to first answer that this question in our case doesn't actually pop up. We don't talk about Scrum at all. That's funny enough because it's a large-scale Scrum, and so they don't follow Scrum fully. It's deviating from it quite a lot. This is mainly because I don't emphasize myself and other Agile coaches this. And do we have Scrum Masters? Yes. Do we call them Scrum Masters? No. Agile Coach for. It sounds cooler for them, but essentially it's the same thing. And
you get better salary with the Agile Coach, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so what happens is that the Agile coaches, they're basically in a bit more focused on organizational issues, so collaboration between different teams, etc. So not only at team level. Another thing which in LESS is very much important is the Scrum Masters also focus on technical excellence. And so this is what's happening here also. They really need to learn that more or already have knowledge.
All right, thank you very much for this one. And the next one is, can you please tell us more about the principal engineering role? Was it a team lead? Just once again, was it a team leader role? How did it work, or how does it work? I think.
Okay. So in a way, it's similar to the Agile Coach, except for the fact that they are typically way more capable, way more knowledgeable. They are just simply very experienced engineers, and not team lead in any form of whatsoever. They cannot tell team to do anything, essentially, and so they're basically technical coaches, you could say. That's how you can perceive it.
So Scrum Master with a technical focus.
Yeah, so they're working kind of together. We don't have enough Agile coaches or Scrum Masters for a team, definitely not per team. So this is kind of solved by working together with the PEs, principal engineers, which are kind of working together to complete that picture.
Okay, yeah, my observation is like we have a Scrum Master, and then when we have a Scrum Master focusing on the technical part, then we don't call them the Scrum Master anymore.
Yeah.
So anyway, I have two more, I have plenty of more, but few of them are kind of popping up, and really want to go at least through two of them. Let me go with this one. What was the biggest struggle regarding introducing Agile mindset, openness, transparency, to the old-fashioned hierarchy style of work as it is in Indonesia?
The biggest struggle is the biggest challenge for me, if I may say, is to empathize much more with them. Because I'm extremely biased by assuming that everybody should understand certain things about product development in general. But then you get a question like, Victor, why are we building software just like we're building buildings? You just put stuff together and that's it. And so then you really need to not make fun of that. Because it's perfectly normal. The person sitting in front of me is not somebody with product development background. He's running a bank. He's an extremely smart person who just happens to be not being in product development. And so you need to empathize with them. You need to explain, to show them in their words, how actually software development works. And this is challenging. This is a struggle. It takes time, quite a lot of time.
All right. Let me move to this one. That's nice. How do you deal with teams taking real responsibility for product? We struggle with this a lot as multiple teams are working for a common code base.
It's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. So you establish the constraints and you make it very clear what the expectation is. And so you basically say to team, this is the backlog item. and make it happen. And so the typical reaction from the team, but we don't have a skill to blah, 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 blah. Your problem, figure out. Do you need any help to figure it out? But it's your problem still, not my problem. And so obviously this then strains the team quite a lot. And, but then over time becomes slowly better and better. And so what I usually notice is this clarity to the team, what they expected to do is lacking. And instead what the companies typically do is try to be nice to the team. Do not be nice to teams, my advice.
So the answer is treat people as adults.
Yes. Yes, we confuse respect with being nice to the team when they screw up or they don't improve.
All right, can you just elaborate a little bit more about this common code base part? So one of the fears that is coming from many cases when we have a less conversations, like how come many teams can change the same code base and don't destroy that, right?
Yeah. So to elaborate on that a bit.
If you can address this one, like one of the fears commonly heard during the less adoption is like right now we used to have a team A doing the component A. Now we are expecting 275 people to change the same code base. That's going to blow up, right?
Okay, yeah. Actually, that up to a certain level, the people are afraid of that. They are right. And so meaning if the moment that you switch from a component ownership to shared ownership or team ownership or shared ownership, things actually may blow up simply because some developers think they know what they're doing and they start to mess things up. That's true. That's short-term effect. Long-term effect is the other way around, meaning that the fewer the people are seeing and touching the code, the worse the quality becomes. So this requires some system modeling discussion to observe what's actually happening. We are aiming for a long-term effect, not short-term effect. Yeah.
All right, thank you. So it will get worse before it will get better. This is basically.
You could kind of say that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Believe this is the last one. Can you elaborate more on how you convince to less without mentioning less? So, any specific examples on how it was addressed with executives?
Yeah, that actually, for me, is quite easy because when I sometimes get a question from company, we want to do less. I get confused immediately. My first question is, what the heck are you talking about? Why do you want to do this? And then I find out they don't actually want to do less. And so it's it makes it much more, it gives much more clarity to talk about the problems, how they want to solve them. And then instead of talking about the less, you talk about end-to-end responsibility and why is this important, being close to customer, collaborating across teams, waste if you don't collaborate directly by the teams. So this helps a lot.
All right. I believe we're going to stop now. There are a few more questions which you need to ask yourself during the breaks or in the afternoon if there will be party. You're staying till tomorrow, I believe, right? You're not leaving.
Yeah,
so you can still catch Victor and grab him for a beer in the evening. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you.